Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. Welcome, everybody, to the show for a Wednesday edition. Appreciate all the Pewter people that are going to be watching us tonight. We got a fun topic that we're going to get into in this prime time episode. Are the Bucs too young at some positions? This offseason, the Bucs really had two objectives. They wanted to get younger and they wanted to get faster. And I think they accomplished both of those. But how young is too young for this Bucs team, specifically talking about players that will be put into big-time roles for this team that is looking to make the playoffs for the fourth season in a row and really prove a lot of the doubters wrong, because not many people have very high expectations for Tampa Bay this season. So a lot to get into on today's show. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me, making his Pewter Report debut. He's a friend of the program, has been on multiple times, but officially as a Pewter reporter joining the show today, it is James Hill. James, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me tonight, and welcome to pewterreport.com.
Yeah, hey, thanks for obviously having me on. I know that we've talked about this a lot on social medias, on mine, on Pewter Report. Really excited about joining the team. I've already had a ton of fun so far. It's been a blast to cover the team already. We talked already a lot about the OTA practice that we were at together, and now moving forward, we're going to have mandatory mini camp. So there's a lot of content out there, man. It's an exciting time.
Yes, absolutely. And James, as he just said, was with us at Bucs OTAs yesterday. You're going to see a lot of his content on our YouTube channel, me and him collabing on some stuff as well. So really trying to make our YouTube as amazing as we possibly can. Of course, James will be providing other things for Pewter Report as well, including some written content down the road too. So very excited about that. Before we talk about today's topic, there was a little bit of news for the Buccaneers today. I'm not going to say groundbreaking by any means, but they did waive a kicker today, Jake Verity. A little bit of an interesting move, considering that we're still just in OTAs, and with mandatory minicamp going into next week. So I just found it slightly interesting for the fact that I think we were all under the impression that the Bucs were going to have kicker competition this year. I mean, we're talking about the quarterback competition, and that's obviously the headliner, but the kicker was a little bit of the opening act, especially with so much stability at that position over the past couple of years with Ryan Suckup. And now it was supposed to be Verity and Chase McLaughlin, but right now it's just McLaughlin. Your thoughts about that? And I don't think the Bucs are nearly done with figuring out who's going to be their kicker when the regular season rolls around.
Yeah, so this was something that I talked about earlier today in a video. Jake Verity was released, and he was a guy that was a practice squad guy with the Baltimore Ravens. He was a guy who obviously had spent a little bit of time with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have also had Chase McLaughlin on the team. They signed him, former Indianapolis Colt, former Cleveland Brown kicker, and now he's the only guy left on the roster. So it's a very interesting situation. They may bring in another kicker. They may bring in another position entirely. But right now, as it stands, you only have one kicker on your roster. So I don't think that the kicking battle is won yet. It's still very, very early in all of these offseason workouts and whatnot. So I think that this competition is far from done, but it is definitely an interesting move. Don't know if they'll bring in another kicker right away. They may bring in some veteran type of guy. Who knows? I think Robbie Gould is still out there, right? So who knows?
Yeah.
Who they will bring in, but it was definitely a very interesting move. Definitely one that was surprising to me.
Yeah, without question. I don't think we're going to see a new kicker that's brought in, let's just say, next week. But I'm with you. I think either a veteran such as Robbie Gould, as you mentioned, sometimes there's always surprise releases as the summer goes on. I remember like Matt Prater, when he got cut, that was a very surprising move that people didn't really foresee coming. So I don't think this is even remotely close to being done. The claim to fame with McLaughlin really is He's sort of the anti-Ryan Suckup. I mean, the closer that he gets, the more inaccurate that he is. But what he does do well is he can hit from 50, from 55. He's actually even like more accurate the further that he is. And I think that's really going to help the Bucs this year if he wins that job. I'm not anointing him the kicker yet by any means, but because we don't know too much about this Bucs offense yet, we understand it's going to be a new system and a new scheme. But all of a sudden, really with the big question mark being quarterback, in the Tom Brady era, if the Bucs were settling for a 51-yard field goal, that was considered disappointing and a failure of a drive. This year, if the Bucs get into field goal range and McLaughlin's hitting a 55-yarder, that's a successful drive for this offense. So McLaughlin at least has the leg to get the job done, and we'll see where the Bucs go from there.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing with McLaughlin, right? Is that he does have that long range distant ability. Talked about it earlier today. I think he was 9 for 12 in terms of 45 plus or something along those lines in terms of long range field goals, right? So that's what the Bucs have been looking for, and you want to be able to hit from multiple ranges. I think a guy like McLaughlin's going to give you that ability, and it was a tough thing to move on from Suckup. Obviously from 40 under, the guy is pretty much automatic, whereas a guy like McLaughlin might not be. But you want to be able to score from longer ranges, so you're able to put some points up on the board and not just have to automatically punt in your mind, right? So that is kind of the reasoning there with the difference between those two guys. Like you said, almost like an anti-Suckup or a reverse Suckup in a way in terms of kicking ability. But yeah, like I don't think that it is a slam dunk thing to say that Chase McLaughlin is this team's kicker right now. Now, to be fair, Matt, we were at OTA practice yesterday. Though I don't think I saw him miss a kick, which was pretty interesting. So they may feel pretty confident about his abilities, but it still is, I would say, possible that the Buccaneers may bring in another kicker to compete with McLaughlin. Maybe they just felt like Jake Verdi was not solid of enough competition. They wanted to bring somebody else in here, maybe a more experienced leg. We'll have to wait and see. But they could also do a couple of other things with that extra roster spot. They could add some depth to other position groups like tight end, offensive line, all these other different types of groups that they have, or they could use a little bit more experience. That is where you could also see possibly the Bucs going in terms of adding some depth to those groups as well.
Yeah, no question about it. So let's kind of transition now to the topic of the day, or the night, I guess I should say, since we are in prime time, about are the Bucs too young at certain positions? I know there's two specifically that pop into my head, James. I'm curious where it is for you, though. And when I'm talking about the Bucs being too young, like obviously they want to have an influx of youth. I think they absolutely needed that with how the season went last year. And obviously those numbers are going to be skewed when you have Tom Brady on your team, who's 45 years old. That's going to bring the average age up a lot more. But I do feel the Bucs needed to get younger in other positions. But at the same time, that means that you're going to have players that are inexperienced and are new to the NFL and unfamiliar with certain ways that things are going. And I just think the biggest thing is, sure, if you have young players, that's great. But when they're playing pivotal roles, starting roles, or key impact minutes for this team, that's where it kind of toes the line of like, yes, we want this part of your game, but not that part of your game. So is there any position that sticks out to you first where you're like, wow, they got a young group, but and they're going to be asked to play in really important situations?
So for me, and you may have the same exact groups, Matt, but for me, there's two. One is the tight end position, and two is the tackle position specifically. You take a look at both those groups. Look, Cade, Otton, Kieft, Payne, Durham, incredibly young tight end group. The veterans, quote unquote, are second year guys, right? And while they are, a lot of guys to be excited about in Payne Durham, I know a lot of people are excited about him, as you can see on the screen here, as a red zone threat type of guy. And then also Cade Otton and what he was able to give the Buccaneers last year. Kieft was a pretty good blocker for them last year as well. I think that you really could use a veteran in that room. Rob Gronkowski, he's been retired for a little bit now. He's not coming back. You released Cam Brate this offseason. I mean, maybe you even bring a guy like Cam Brate back, possibly on a cheaper deal if you really do want to have a veteran type of guy in there. But I think that that is one position group where they could just even use the leadership of a veteran as well. A guy who's been there, a guy who's been in the league for a while can kind of teach those guys what to do more so at the NFL level. And then you look at offensive tackle, which is, geez, a lot of experiments going on in left tackle and right tackle. Tristan Wirfs is being moved over to left tackle. Luke Gedeke is being moved over to right tackle. You have Brandon Walton, who got some snaps at left tackle last year, and he did some up and down types of things up to that point. But that's pretty much it in terms of overall depth. Josh Wells is gone. He has moved on, and the team could definitely use a veteran tackle, in my opinion. I think that is actually one of the more, I would say, important things left for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to address. Because look, at the end of the day, like, you don't know if these experiments are going to work out. If Luke Gedeke struggles at right tackle, or gosh, good, forbid that, Tristan Wirfs struggles at left tackle, you might have to move him back over to right tackle. I would want a veteran tackle, a swing tackle at that, a guy that if you need him to play some snaps, you could rely on him to do so. So I would say those two position groups specifically are ones that I think could certainly use a veteran in those rooms.
Yeah, I think you make great points for both of them. Specifically, you nailed it on the head with the tight end position. So I'll talk about tight end and offensive line as well. We also have a super chat from LDBC's Most Wanted. Make sure we get to you as well. I see you in the chat there. So thank you to LDBC. But yeah, starting with the tight end, it's surreal to think that the veterans in the group is second-year player Kieft and the starter going into this year with Cade, Otton, and then you add Payne, Durham into the mix. I'm totally cool with the Bucs bringing in a veteran tight end to kind of show them the ropes. I mean, we saw that last year, obviously with Camp right there, but Kyle Rudolph as well. But I want to make sure that the tight end coming in knows that the role is strictly just to help the younger guys. Like, I don't want to see that tight end on the field at all, where like Cam Brate dipped into the playing time of Cade Otton. I'm not going to go as far as to say that he stunted the growth and development of Cade Otton as a rookie in his first season. But even like Kyle Rudolph got some playing time last year where I don't think he should have at all. Kyle Rudolph scored a touchdown last year, caught one from Tom Brady late in the season. Now, that might be more at fault of the coaching staff than anything else on why Cam Brate was dipping into the minutes of Cade Otton. And for Otton specifically, I think that there is so much more untapped potential that we haven't even really seen yet because he was Mr. Second Half. He didn't start making plays until, either the Bucs were trying to claw their way back into games or just, until the fourth quarter when they absolutely needed him. And I think one thing we're seeing early on with the Dave Canales offense, and yes, there's going to be a ton of motion. Yes, there's going to be a lot of movement. But with tight ends specifically, they're going to get into the flats. They're going to find the short spaces to get open. But the one big play that they like going down the field with is over the middle of the field, kind of like at the hash marks, just a straight go route down the field. And I think that's where Cade Otton is going to thrive in that role. And I think rookie tight end out of Purdue, Payne Durham can fit that role as well. He made a very nice one-handed juggling catch a couple of OTAs ago, as you see in the picture there. And I think the tight ends, because there's going to be so many 2 tight end, 3 tight end sets, that both these guys are going to be on the field at the same time, which I think will be super cool and really just be that big red zone threat that I think the Bucs were missing at times last year. Yes, you want to keep throwing it to Mike Evans. Yes, you want to get the ball to Chris Godwin. But if they're not open every single time, you have to find that third and fourth option. I think Cade Otton can do that, and Payne Durham can as well. Kieft, I specifically just look at him as like a fullback, extra blocker type of thing. I'm not looking at him to provide anything in the passing game. Like, yes, he also scored a touchdown last season on a pass to Tom Brady. Specifically, it was the game against the Cleveland Browns, but that was one of those, play action. He's wide open. Like, of course, he's going to make the catch. Anyone at the NFL level can kind of make that. But you are putting a lot of eggs in that basket of, okay, rookie, okay, second-year player, you have to be our guy because we don't have a lot of other options. So I think having a veteran in there just as a security blanket, show them the ropes, be an extra coach, kind of be what, and this is a different sport, but the NBA Finals is tonight. It's going on in like an hour and a half. Udonis Haslem on the Miami Heat is essentially a player coach at this point. He doesn't play at all. He's just there for the guys. If they want to bring in a veteran tight end, I'm absolutely down with that. And to your point about offensive tackle, obviously with Luke Gedeke on the right side, but I'm going to look at the entire offensive line as a whole, at least on that right side, because you got Gedeke at right tackle and friend of the program, Cody Mauch at right guard. You want to talk about an influx of youth. I mean, that is as young as it gets and as dicey as it really gets. Because let's face it, Luke Gedeke, he'll be on the show tomorrow. Make sure you tune in at 7 p.m. We'll have Luke the Lifter on the show. But Luke will be the first one to tell you that, he had his struggles last year when he was playing left guard. So now they moved him back to his natural position over at right tackle. So that, that's a transition in of itself where, yes, you hope for the best and you can see if he plays well, how that's going to help the team, but you don't 100% know that he's going to get the job done. And then same thing with Cody Mauch, super exciting, a lot of fun, a great interview, obviously, if you guys watched the show. But if Luke Gedeke struggled at guard last year, why is Cody Mauch all of a sudden just going to, change the norm completely, So the Bucs are putting a lot of eggs in that basket. The at least bright side, though, for the offensive line. And yes, I completely hear your point about offensive tackle. Brandon Walden, I think, is obviously a good one into the mix, but I like him more as that swing tackle, maybe not necessarily that, guy that's going to come in and start, because he did last year. And, after the Saints game where he got thrown into the mix because there was injuries, when he got the start, the results still weren't as great. But at least on the interior, you have Robert Hainsey in there that can go in and start if you need. We'll see if Aaron Stinney makes the team. But Nick Leverett is another viable opportunity. But on the flip side, James, if things work out for that offensive line on the right side with Luke Gedeke and Cody Mauch, I mean, you're talking about a formidable front for the next 3 seasons with guys under contract because they're on their rookie deals. Then you add that with Tristan Wirfs, who's still very, very young on the left side. And obviously the Bucs are going to do everything in their power. They're going to move heaven and earth to make sure that he's a Buck for, the entirety of his career. You're talking about 3 of the 5 pieces on the offensive line being long-term solutions for this team that could pay huge dividends. And then obviously eventually you'll have to replace Ryan Jensen and Matt Filer. We'll see how long he's there for. But across the board in the NFL, if you have 3 offensive linemen that are leading the way for you, that is gigantic for really any team. As Clack 5 White says, zone blocking should help the entire offensive line. I agree with that as well, but got to get to that super chat from LDBC's Most Wanted. Thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat. They say, salute PR from California. Thank you for watching on the West Coast, where it's 4:20 right now over in California. If this was Monday, we'd be doing roll call. They say, I wanted to ask how many current Bucs are future Ring of Honor inductees, and why is Jason Light the best GM in Bucs history? Love the question, James. Feel free to start it off. I mean, Mike Evans obviously is an easy answer there. But anyone else on the roster right now that you think is a future Bucs Ring of Honor inductee?
Mike Evans, Levante David, those are 2. I think you could say Tristan Wirfs. I mean, gosh, honestly, can you maybe say Ryan Jensen if he keeps on playing a little bit longer? I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, who knows? On the defensive side, I think you can throw Vita Vea in that mix. I think that is a legitimate thing, depending on how Antoine Winfield Jr.'s career ends up, and maybe even cornerbacks Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean. Maybe you could throw that guys into the mix as well. But if I had to give one surefire answer on each side of the football, it's got to be Mike Evans and Levante David. So that would be my picks for sure.
Yeah, Mike and Levante are, like, without a doubt, no-brainers. I think Tristan Wirfs can get into that discussion without question. I mean, we said it on yesterday's show. He's already building a Hall of Fame resume. Another guy in this picture that I think can potentially get in there as well is Chris Godwin, because I think it's another thing, and a lot of these guys we mentioned are homegrown talent anyway. But when Chris Godwin, the way that he's just evolved year by year and gotten better each season, and this is essentially his second act now, coming back from the torn ACL. And his first year, and granted, a lot of it was the Byron Leftwich screens, and we'll see how he looks in Dave Canales' offense, who's also pictured. But Chris Godwin broke a franchise record last season with the amount of catches that he made. Now, it included the playoff game as well, so it wasn't just a regular season record. We're talking about breaking the Bucs franchise record for most catches in a season, coming off of a torn ACL injury where he didn't even feel 100%. And even right now, he said that he's like almost there. I mean, if he has anywhere remotely close to what was his 2019 season, or even the run that he was on in 2021 up until he tore his ACL, I think Godwin has to be in the conversation to be a future Ring of Honor member. I like what you said about Vita Vea. The problem is when you become a Bucs Ring of Honor member, like you have to be some of the best of the best. Like you got to have a lot of the obviously individual accolades for things you've done with the Bucs, whether it's breaking records or certain accomplishments. But I think you also have to do things on a national level as well. Like on yesterday's show, Scott was talking about the double-digit Pro Bowl appearances that Derek Brooks had. Or, John Lynch had the reputation of being the hardest hitter in the league. Same thing with like Allstott at fullback. That was a coming attraction. Everyone knew who Mike Allstott was for what he did for this team. So I think Vita, if he can get a couple of more national recollection, whether it's adding an All-Pro to his resume, whether it's making a couple of more Pro Bowls, I think that can go a long way. Cali Bucks, who another California Bucks fan watching this says, let's not just start putting everyone in the Ring of Honor. Won't even have room for any names in the stadium. I'll be honest. I've had not a problem. Like I don't lose sleep at night over it. I do feel at times I'm not wording this correctly. What I'm trying to say is the Bucs have had people in their Ring of Honor that are like more famous for things that they did with other teams than what they did in Tampa Bay. Like, for example, if you asked anybody outside of Tampa, like Tony Dungy, what do you think of him? They'd be like, oh, the Colts head coach that won a Super Bowl. Now, if you go to Tampa, everyone's like, oh, Tony Dungy, like, built that team that won the Super Bowl when John Gruden took over. Doug Williams as well. And I think they're both deserving of being in the Bucs Ring of Honor. But like Doug Williams is another guy. If you ask just your typical football fan that doesn't reside in Tampa, you'd be like, oh, the quarterback that won a Super Bowl with Washington, So I feel like the Bucs in the past have ran into that issue of like giving guys Bucs Ring of Honor accolades that are deserving, but they're not looked at as like all-time Bucs nationally. So I think the Bucs got to make sure that they get it right there. Antoine Whitfield Jr., though, I think is another one that absolutely could be up there one day.
Going to be real crazy when Tom Brady gets in too.
Yeah, but that's different because, and I've said this before, one, there's nothing you can do. He started his career with the Patriots, but he completely put the Bucs on the map after a decade's worth of bad play, embarrassment, not making the postseason. Like he brought the Bucs back, and also Tom Brady is the perfect example of he transcends the game of football. Like it's him and Michael Jordan in terms of just mega stars in their sport that anyone knows him. Like, parents, grandparents, everybody knows who Tom Brady is, just like everyone knows who Michael Jordan is. So, yeah, Brady is kind of that exception to the rule. But a great question. I definitely do appreciate it. Antoine Winfield Jr., though, man, like if he gets that second contract, I think that's another really good one. Because the Bucs, let's face it, this team is built on defense, is it not?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, you look at all the pieces who are there right now, like obviously Todd Bowles being a defensive minded coach. Yeah, like they are built on their defense, especially right now, given the Tom Brady era is no longer a thing. Like they've got to lean more on their defense. I remember you said something that was really uh insightful last pod or maybe the second pod before where you said like, look, the Bucs defense kept them in games last year because of unfortunately the ineptitude of the offense, right?
Yes.
Todd Bowles and that defense for keeping this team in football games. It's a big calling card for Bowles. And I think that was a huge thing to see from Bowles' first year as the head coach to say, like, hey, the defense ain't falling off. We're still doing a good job. It just goes to prove that, like, hey, if Bowles can make a right hire at OC and get this offensive scheme back on track to where it can be successful and benefit the offensive skill position players that are there instead of, matching your best guys up against your best guys and then just hoping it works out right. That is where I think that you really can see this team start to be successful because I think the defense can certainly do its job. Now you just got to see the offense rebound, and hopefully that'll be a thing with a proper scheme from Dave Canales.
No question about it. I think we've nitpicked the Bucs defense at points to a degree, but at the end of the day, if you're keeping the team off the scoreboard, then that's really all you need to do. We've criticized the pass rush of the Bucs, most specifically at outside linebacker. We've criticized the fact that there's been a lack of turnovers last season. But still, if you're keeping the team in games, if you're allowing less than 21 points, that's the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate objective when it comes to this team. So Todd Bowles does deserve credit for that. I know everyone wants to hate on some of the head coaching decisions that he's made, and I think some of your criticism is absolutely fair, especially game management. I think has been something that Todd Bowles really needs to clean up. But as far as still being a defensive game caller and everything that comes with it, he's still the best of the best when it really comes to that. And when it comes to having an energy drink, that the best of the best is Celsius, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast and, of course, pewterreport.com. We love Celsius for so many reasons, one of them being the variety of flavors that they have. You can see on the screen there, one of the newest ones that they got available for you to purchase if you would like is the Oasis Vibe, which is a sparkling prickly pear lime. You also got the sparkling lemon lime, sparkling orange. My personal favorite is the Arctic Vibe. Also like the cucumber lime and the sparkling strawberry lemonade as well. So an abundance of flavors that you can find. There is no sugar, no post-energy drink crash or jitters that you might get with another product out there. The flavors are delicious. So if you need to know where to find one, go to the Celsius website, punch in your location on the store locator, and it will give you the most literal, accurate location where you can find one, whether it's at your local Walmart, Target, convenience store, 7-Eleven, or as I like to say, your bodega. And I'm in New York right now. Might have to stop by a bodega after this and pick one up. And then once you know that you love Celsius because of the variety of flavors and you want to get so many as possible, and you're like, I need more than just one, I need to get it in bulk. Celsius has got you covered. Go over to Amazon, click on the subscribe and save. Get that variety pack because variety is the spice of life, and get all the flavors of Celsius. Don't limit yourself to just one. Bucs have a lot of great players on defense. They don't want just one good player. They want a bunch of good players. And you could do the same with Celsius as well. So go to Amazon, do the subscribe and save, and have it set up whenever you want to get shipped to your house or apartment. You could do it every week, monthly, quarterly, even yearly if you want to. Please just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. Make Celsius your number one pick. Now, James, we've been talking about the defensive side of the ball. I want to stick with it because we talked about Antoine Winfield Jr. before, and rightfully so. But you look at the safety room after Antoine Winfield Jr. and new veteran signing Ryan Neal, who I'm very, very excited about. We could talk about him in a little bit. But after those two safeties, I'm not going to say it's slim pickings because there's a lot of guys that I think have great upside, but it's a lot of undrafted free agents coming in. You have Kaevon Merriweather out of Iowa, who trained in the offseason in Tampa, so he's familiar with the area. You got Christian Izien from Rutgers, who's a super athletic guy that has caught the attention of Antoine Winfield Jr., where Antoine even went out to say, he reminds me of myself, which I think that's very high praise for the caliber of player that we all think Antoine Winfield Jr. is. You got Kedrick Whitehead as well, another safety named Whitehead in Tampa Bay. I think Bucs fans won't have an issue with that. And then, of course, the second-year player, also an undrafted free agent, Nolan Turner. I think there's a lot of talent with this group, but they are all undrafted free agents. And if something happens to Antoine Winfield Jr., who's, had a little bit of an injury history, hasn't missed a ton of games, but does miss games here and there. Something happens to him and something happens to Ryan Neal, you are asking a lot from this undrafted rookie free agent group.
Yeah, it's such a interesting situation. This is one of those groups. I mean, heck, we just talked about it, right? A lot of youth at a lot of different positions. Ryan Neal's the oldest guy in the room. I think he's 26, Matt? Is that correct?
Yeah, something like that.
Right. So, I mean, that's another position group where you're like, whoa, like this is a young group. And I get it with salary cap limitations. Look, folks, these types of things are going to happen. But that is a thing where, hey, if they can free up a little bit more cap space, maybe they can get a guy in there, maybe a veteran, but maybe also look to move Josh Hayes there a little bit as well, like the recent draft pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 6th round, I believe, or 5th round, one or the other.
Yes. Yeah.
So, that's a guy that you could also move back there as well. But again, you have a lot of undrafted guys. You have a lot of young guys, a second-year guy, a potential rookie in there as well. Antoine Winfield Jr. and Ryan Neal are going to be leaned on heavily, I think, going forward with this secondary. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Antoine Winfield Jr., everybody knows how great he is. Ryan Neal, in my opinion, is one of the most low-key but I think underrated offseason moves that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have made. And I really do like what he brings to the table as a safety. I think he can be an absolute star for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary. But yeah, a lot of experience there. It's going to be interesting to see how those guys look in preseason, right? Because you hear teams signing guys in the middle of preseason or in the middle of training camp and whatnot. If we get through a preseason game or maybe, through some training camp and things aren't looking great at the back end of that safety room, maybe they will consider bringing in a veteran. They may also play a guy like D. Delaney there a little bit more as well. I believe he's been playing a little bit more safety going back to last year. Matt, is that correct?
He's been used a lot in the slot, that nickel corner position where Josh Hayes, I keep leaving him out when I talk about that safety room because I just look at him as another nickel corner. But yes, D. Delaney has played safety before. I think the Bucs love the versatility of D. Delaney, where they can kind of move him around everywhere. And so he's going to be a little bit of that Swiss Army knife for this defense. Just a guy that knows Todd Bowles' system, has been in it for a couple of years. So if they need him to play corner, he'll play corner. If they need him in the slot, he's going to do that too. And I think at safety, he's going to be a little bit more of a break glass in case of emergency, but definitely capable of playing there.
Yeah, so it definitely is just a really intriguing situation, right? Like Nolan Turner, special teams captain for Clemson for a couple of years. He's going to be an interesting name to pay attention to. I know a lot of people are very excited about Kedrick Whitehead and Kaevon Merriweather and Christian Izien and some of those undrafted guys. So we'll see how they do, right? It's going to be a lot, like you said, to ask of these young guys to say, hey, you might be the second string guy, going forward into this. Not only might you make the 53-man roster, gosh, you might be on rotation to get some snaps in some regular season games. So let's see how you guys do. So it's definitely a lot of intrigue there with that position group to see how those guys perform, see how those guys do. But I think you also can be very excited about the starting duo of Antoine Winfield Jr. and Ryan Neal because it definitely seems like the Buccaneers have a lot of confidence in those guys also, understandably so.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still holding out hope that Logan Ryan will be re-signed at some point. I know he's doing a lot on his own, like some, media type of stuff, but might as well start it now. And then if a team calls you, be like, yeah, I'll play again for another NFL contract and then can get back to media once the season is done. I thought he was so valuable to what Tampa Bay was trying to do on defense last year. I think, again, bringing him in would be a great addition. I'm excited about Josh Hayes, see what he can do at nickel along with some of the other guys in there. Izien, I'm super, super high on. Just that crazy, crazy athleticism. I think he can bring a lot to the table for the Bucs. But let's talk a little bit more about Ryan Neal specifically, because James, you were out there yesterday, and a bit of a slower day for Ryan Neal in terms of just he really stood out. I think the first two practices, just the sheer gargantuan size of him next to the rest of the safeties, like he sticks out in a great way. I think he's going to bring a little bit of that hammer that the Bucs, they had it with Keanu Neal last year, but really Jordan Whitehead was the last guy that's going to, lay the woodshed on the opponent. And I understand in today's NFL, you're not going to have that John Lynch type of player anymore. It's just not possible with how the league, tries to protect the safety of the players, or at least fake that they want the safety of the players so they don't get sued for a number of different issues. It's like, oh, we want the players to be safe. We're also going to add another game, which eventually they're going to go to 18 games, which is awesome because we all love football, but I'm just talking about it from a player safety standpoint. But Ryan Neal, again, versatility is one of the first things that really comes to mind as Wayne Hankinson says, yep, Ryan Neal will be good this year. Size and speed is awesome for Neal. This is a guy that played everywhere last season for the Seattle Seahawks, and just in his career, he's obviously played a lot of special teams because he knows Keith Armstrong a little bit from his days, or both of their days, back with the Atlanta Falcons. But since he got to Seattle, he played free safety, he played strong safety, which is mostly going to be his role here with Antoine Winfield Jr. moving back to free safety, and he can play in the slot too. I don't think the Bucs really want to do that, at least just yet, until there's more pieces to the puzzle, but he has enough speed. He's got a lot of good prowess. Antoine Winfield Jr. has said that, Neal is a great communicator, which I think this defense desperately needs because we saw so many breakdowns over the past couple of seasons that when you bring in all these new guys, all of this young talent that we just talked about, you need that one staple, that foundation to kind of keep it all together. And that's kind of what Logan Ryan was. So maybe Ryan Neal can kind of take the mantle there if Logan Ryan isn't going to return. And I think the biggest thing, I've used this analogy before, James, I'm curious to get your opinion on it. I think Ryan Neal is in a similar situation to when the Bucs signed Shaq Barrett a couple of years ago, where just a guy that was a third, fourth string player on the depth chart, you had studs in front of him, specifically with Shaq Barrett, with Von Miller over in Denver. Seattle safeties, good, but not to the level of Von Miller. But anyway, that's besides the point. Just Ryan Neal biding his time, trying to get playing time. Got snaps last year, but because of injury, not because, hey, we believe in you, you're the guy. And then the fact that the Seahawks, first of all, they put the restriction on him to make him not open to everyone in free agency, and then rescinded that. And that was a blessing in disguise for Tampa Bay specifically. I'm not saying Ryan Neal's going to have the type of year that Shaq Barrett did when Shaq Barrett had 19 and a half sacks. I don't think Ryan Neal's going to have 10 sacks, 10 interceptions, 5 sacks, and 4 forced fumbles. That'd be a crazy year, and maybe somewhat of an equivalency to, I don't even know if that's a word, an equivalent to Shaq Barrett. But I do think it's one of those things where he's signing a 1-year prove-it deal, and that could parlay into a huge long-term contract as a cornerstone of this Bucs defense.
No, I agree 100%. That's the same similarity that I made whenever Ryan Neal had been signed to the team. I thought, man, this situation reminds me so much of the Shaq Barrett scenario, right? Where it's a guy looking to prove his worth here at the NFL in his mid-20s saying, hey, I know I can play some football. I know I can be good. Who's going to give me a shot? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers said, well, we need some safeties. Why don't we go ahead and bring you in? And I think it's such a good situation for Ryan Neal because what does Todd Bowles excel at is developing and cultivating the talents of safeties. I mean, gosh, he's done it for years and years and years and years. We've seen the Bucs almost be like a safety factory in a way, right? Jordan Whitehead came into this system. He got out. He got paid. Mike Edwards came into this system. He went out. He didn't get paid as much, but he still, went off, enjoyed the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions, which I think is a pretty good scenario for him. Keanu Neal came back. He had played linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys before, came back, played safety for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, played pretty good, went out and joined the Pittsburgh Steelers, got paid a little bit more than he probably would have in last year as well. So, there have been guys who have come in and succeeded in this defense and have gone on to go get some bigger contracts and really just overall raise their stock in Tampa Bay because of what Todd Bowles can do with that safety position. So I think that that's a match made in heaven between Bowles and Ryan Neal. Dude's big, like you said. What is he, 6'3", 190, something like that?
Mm-hmm. He just stands out above everyone else.
Quite literally. Not even just his play, but also just because of his stature. He's a big dude. So one thing that I thought was so interesting last year with Neal was that he wasn't blitzed a lot, and he's got the size to be an insane blitzer, I think. And I think we can see that change with Todd Bowles and all the exotic fronts and blitzes that he sends out. I think Neal can be a force as a pass rusher and as a pass coverage guy as well. Again, we've talked about it before. One of the better pass coverage safeties in the entire league last year based on the snaps that he played. So this is a move that I think, again, we talked about it earlier, very underrated signing, but I think one that can pay massive dividends right away for the Bucs.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think in the tenure of Todd Bowles, just as a defensive play caller, obviously being the defensive coordinator and then moving to head coach, you see the free safety blitz all the time. We've seen it a million times with Antoine Winfield Jr., but we haven't seen it as much at strong safety. Jordan Whitehead wasn't always a blitzer. He would play up in the box. Don't get me wrong. Jordan Whitehead was great in the run game, preventing any team really from moving the ball against Tampa Bay, even if you got past the force field of Vita Vea and everybody else on that defensive line. Jordan Whitehead would be right there to clean it up after. And, they didn't blitz a strong safety too much last season as well. But I do remember there was one specific play. I think it was early on in the season against the Saints. And they blitzed Keanu Neal, and he annihilated the quarterback. But they called him for a roughing the passer. It was one of those, he just lifted his head a little bit too much, and the crown of his helmet hit the quarterback's helmet. And so, therefore, it's a 15-yard penalty. It was very early on in the game. They don't blitz the strong safety a lot, but when they do, it's been very deliberate and quite successful. So I'm curious if they'll dip into that just a little bit more, given the skill set of Ryan Neal. Or, yeah, as you said, just Todd Bowles coming up with all of these different crazy, chaotic schemes that we've loved to see. Just seeing all these different players lining up in unnatural positions, I think, is super, super fun. And maybe Todd Bowles doesn't have to draw up all those things if the edge rushers really come to play. And I think edge rusher, we talked about Shaq Barrett before, is another position where you're not immediately relying on the youth because you have Shaq Barrett, and that's a huge question mark coming back from that Achilles injury and just personal turmoil specifically. We've all talked about Joe Tryanchenko, what he's going to bring. Anthony Nelson had a great season last year, second on the team in sacks with 5.5. That led all the edge rushers, the outside linebackers in the group. But I wonder if that was his ceiling or if he can grow further than that. But that's a long roundabout way of me saying if JTS doesn't pick it up, if Anthony Nelson, if that's his ceiling, the Bucs bulked up an edge rusher this year with Yaya Diaby, specifically their third-round pick out of Louisville. They also drafted Jose Ramirez in the 6th round. And these players, Diaby, I think we could talk a little bit more about just given where he was drafted. I don't know if they're going to be immediate impact players, but if there's one injury or, if Shaq Barrett, it takes long for him to return from that Achilles injury or something happens to JTS or Anthony Nelson, then it's Yaya Diaby's job. And I think early on, he's going to be a situational pass rusher, maybe just come in on third down or whatever it may be. But this guy is gigantic, and I'm very excited to see what Yaya will bring to Tampa Bay's pass rush.
Yeah, Yaya Diaby was such an interesting pick, right? The dude's a freak athlete, and that was such an interesting thing about this Bucs draft class early on was they drafted so many strong athletes, right? Like guys that just had absolute speed. Even a guy like
Yeah.
Cody Mock, Kalijah Cansey, and Yaya Diaby, your first couple of picks, those guys are athletes. Some of the top athletes at their respective positions this year. So it's going to be interesting to see where Yaya Diaby fits into this mix at edge rusher. Is he going to be, competing with a guy like Anthony Nelson for those third outside edge rushing linebacker snaps? That remains to be seen. They obviously like Anthony Nelson a lot. They signed him to a pretty substantial extension. You have JTS there as well. You've got Shaq Barrett. This is a pretty healthy looking unit, right? With a lot of youth, some good veteran stuff mixed in there as well. And I think Yaya Diaby's, I understand a lot of hype. And if he is able to get some playing time, I think he's definitely going to turn some heads, definitely going to surprise some people with his overall efficiency just because of the sheer athleticism he has. If he can develop a couple of moves, man, oh man, this guy can be really good.
Right. That's the big question with Yaya is he kind of had like one big breakout year at Louisville. And the question always is, was that a flash in the pan or is that just a continuation on what he can do? I mean, he came in so bulked out. Like, it was awesome to see. People were going nuts over it, going absolutely crazy about Yaya Diaby. I think he's got that really exciting combination of both size, speed, and athleticism, which, yes, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka had that, but Yaya has it in a little bit of a different way. I think he's a little bit more of a dog, if you know what I mean. Like, he's going to get after it. He's going to get in your face. And just bring a little bit different element to this Bucs pass rushing situation. And then Jose Ramirez had a defensive touchdown yesterday. That was cool. It was more of a, just right place, right time type of situation. But we'll see if he latches on. Obviously, again, youth, speed. That was kind of his game at Eastern Michigan. He's going to have Pat O'Connor in his corner because Pat O'Connor also went to Eastern Michigan. If he brings something to the table, awesome. At that point, when you're drafting sixth round guys, you're just looking for special teams as much as they try to get rid of special teams in the NFL. If he brings anything to it, awesome. And if not, well, not a lot of sixth round draft picks really pan out anyway. There's one more position I want to talk about, but the Bucs are they're betting on a lot of guys to step up and play in big roles this season. So they're betting on their players. If you want to bet on the entire Bucs team, of course, you got to be doing it at mybookie.ag. We've all been there before. A weekend trip to the casino canceled because real life came calling. Well, MyBookie's new and improved online casino is here to change the game. Dive into a truly realistic casino experience featuring the latest in slots, progressive jackpots, and live dealer action, all from the comfort of your own home. Take advantage of weekly blackjack tournaments and a brand new collection of high-end games for a chance at real cash rewards. The MyBookie Casino provides a Las Vegas experience when the action's in your hands. And the best part is, you don't even need to wear pants. Though, I would recommend still wearing pants, at least shorts. Your adventure at the MyBookie Casino begins today with a generous sign-up bonus using promo code Pewter, that's Pewter, to secure yourself a sweet deposit bonus. And that's not all, folks, because their revamped loyalty program ensures that you'll be showered with rewards, including free spins, cashback offers, and a host of exclusive VIP perks. The more you play, the more you win. So play anytime, anywhere with the MyBookie Casino at mybookie.ag. You use that promo code Pewter. You can also get up to $1,000 with your first deposit bonus, absolutely free. So even if you learn from Plant City Math, you know that is a heck of a deal. MyBookie.ag. Use that promo code Pewter, Pewter. And of course, a lot of great stuff to bet on right now. NBA Finals, like we talked about. Game 3 going on tonight. Again, got to give a shout out to Stephen Che. Trust the data. Keep hammering those Jimmy Butler over assists. I haven't looked at the line just yet for the game itself. Well, I'll probably end up taking something. But yeah, go to mybookie.ag. The Rays are playing great, so really just betting on them every single day. You can't really go wrong And of course, a lot of Lightning fans probably very happy that the Vegas Golden Knights are really taking it to the Florida Panthers at the moment. So you can bet on the Stanley Cup as well. And the Belmont Stakes is this weekend on Saturday. So a lot of awesome stuff to bet on over at mybookie.ag. As Tom says, Plant City Math represent. Christopher Cole saying the best show ever. Thank you very much, Christopher Cole. So the last position I want to talk about, going back to the offensive side of the ball. Again, with this position, you have the top guys. They aren't getting replaced. But after that, who's going to make the team? Who could eventually maybe get to that third spot? I'm talking about wide receiver. We all know it's Mike and Chris. Don't get me wrong. Russell Gage with this injury, though, if it is a legit injury, that opens the door for a couple of these young guys. And like at safety, where we talked about a lot of the undrafted free agents, the Bucs at wide receiver in a similar spot. Now they drafted Nebraska wide receiver Trey Palmer, brings a lot of speed, a 4.3 speed, which I think is super cool. Going to take the top off of the defense. But then you have a couple of guys from last year with Devin Tompkins, who was the kick returner as well. Kalen Geiger, who is super, super crazy athletic, was on the practice squad. This year, you have a couple other guys. Cade Warner, obviously the son of Kurt Warner from Kansas State. Ewa, I'm obligated to say that because of Scott Reynolds. Cade Warner, Raheem Jarrett, another wide receiver. I believe he played at Maryland. So a lot of talent over at that position in the undrafted free agent market. And, of course, a late-round draft pick with Trey Palmer as well. Depending on what happens with Russell Gage, James, I don't want to get too excited about Trey Palmer because I did the same thing with Jalen Darden, but I do think Trey Palmer brings a different skill set to the Bucs offense besides just speed. But between Trey Palmer and the crazy athleticism of someone like Geiger and what Cade Warner can do with Raheem Jarrett, mixed in with this new offense with Dave Canales and wide receiver coach Brad Izien, the Bucs aren't crazy tall outside of Mike and Chris, but they don't need to because they have that speed, and with the shorter mesh routes and things like that, a lot of these players fit right into this new offense.
Yeah, no, I think that the Bucs have obviously tabbed wide receivers, the types of wide receivers that they're interested in, kind of speedier guys that you can get out into open space and get a lot of yards after the catch types of receivers. One veteran I want to talk about is David Moore real quick, by the way, as well. He was a rookie minicamp guy. They had him on a trial contract, signed him to a full-time deal. I think we talk about youth. I think having a guy like David Moore there is going to help out those young wide receivers a lot. And I also think that, may really boost his chances to make that 53-man roster when matched up against, all these younger NFL wide receivers because of the familiarity with Dave Canales and some of this offensive coaching staff now. But yeah, the Bucs have a lot of wide receivers who can step up in a lot of different situations whenever you look at Dave Canales' offense and the different types of ways they're going to utilize guys and the creativity with play calling and whatnot expectedly. Obviously, we don't fully know what Dave Canales' system is going to look like just yet, but it definitely is going to be worth paying attention to. Obviously, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, those are going to be your two guys. Russell Gage, it really is unfortunate that he's been dealing with some injury hang-ups the past couple of years since he has signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hopefully he can come back fully healthy and get ready with that. But you have Kalen Geiger, you have Devin Tompkins, who's a big guy, was their returner last year. You have some other guys in that mix that are going to be really interesting and really worth paying attention to. Trey Palmer in there as well. There are a lot of young wide receivers that I think can benefit from this style of offense that's going to be put in now. If this was, say, last year's offense with Byron Leftwich, I would say that the Bucs, honestly, after Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, might be a little bit in trouble.
Yeah.
But because this is an offense that's going to complement your skill position players more so than what we've seen in the past couple of years, I think that there are a lot of exciting guys that I think really could step up and make some names for themselves.
I think you make a lot of fantastic points. This new offense is so much more suited to the guys they have on this roster. Now, granted, some of them they drafted this year, so they knew there was going to be a change in the offense, and that's why they target some of those players specifically. But you hear a lot of the Bucs offensive players, like whether it was Rachaad White, who we had on the podcast last week, or Tristan Wirfs, and you hear a lot of the same type of stuff, whether it's the motion, but really just everything's simplified. And I don't think there's any better way to bring in new players or specifically rookie players into the NFL with a simple offense that is kind of easier to grasp. And it's so funny because there's so much motion, there's so much stuff going on. It looks complex, but it really is simple at the end of the day, which is super, super cool to see and hopefully super beneficial to the Bucs offense. You just heard me mention that we had Rachaad White on the show last week. That was absolutely awesome. We had Cody Mauch on the week before. So we went Cody Mauch, Rachaad White. Tomorrow, we are having Bucs right tackle Luke Gedeke on the show. Going to be very exciting. Talking to Luke, obviously, about his career so far. A lot of ups and downs last season, but now making that move fully to right tackle and what we can expect from him this season coming up. That's going to be at 7 p.m. tomorrow Eastern Standard Time, because we have so many awesome fans from across the globe. Might be at a different time for you, but 7 p.m. Eastern, going to be a ton of fun having Luke Gedeke on the show. And of course, please make sure you like and subscribe to all of our social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We are at Pewter Report, and of course, our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. We have so much content up right now and more to come, thanks to James, this new edition, just adding so much more to Pewter Report and, of course, our YouTube channel. A lot of shorts, different reels. If there's anything that you guys want specifically, feel free to comment in the chat below, any type of content you're looking for, or if there's a player we missed or a position that we missed on today's topic that you think that we should have talked about, or at least someone that you feel passionately about, feel free to put that in the comments as well. But yeah, one more time, please like and subscribe to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report, and YouTube, Pewter Report TV. But that's going to do it for us on tonight's show. James, yes, sir.
One more thing. Check us out on TikTok as well.
Yes, we have a TikTok. We're dipping into that a little bit more. Very exciting stuff. Obviously, TikTok is kind of running the game right now. So if you want quick, fast-hitting Bucs content, you know where to find us at Pewter Report on TikTok as well. James, been awesome chatting with you. A lot of great stuff coming up from James this season with pewterreport.com, but that's going to do it for us tonight. For James Hill, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. We love you, Pewter people, and we will see you tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Luke Gedeke on the show. Get ready. Luke Gedeke, starting right tackle. Out. Peace.